So the question that's been put to me today, well, recently, it wasn't actually today, I'm answering it today, was when is it time to engage in a major expansion or divestment? And this was based on them knowing that the Olympic Spirit Business Coaching, we define the four phases of business of being the startup and launch, business growth and optimization, major expansion, divestment when you get rid of the business. And but business growth and optimization can get confused with expansion, major expansion, in the sense that often you're taking people, very often you're doubling people's, tripling, quadrupling people's existing revenue, their turnover. It's going to double, triple, quadruple, and sometimes up to 10 times more. And that's because we have the five sort of pillars of optimization and growth, and we look at them individually. And for some organizations, some businesses, it's tweaking it, and for some, they just never looked at that area. They managed to get by with not really looking at things. Maybe all things fell into place or so on. So that's why there can be spectacular business growth. It's a bit like I've seen you go to the gym, and sometimes things you didn't do. Like maybe you never squatted, and then suddenly your coach explains to you about squatting, and it takes you to another level in terms of, and then gradually you're pushing weights you never knew you could push if you're a weights person, right? For reasons. So sometimes it's like that, something completely different. And you can imagine that, for a sprinter suddenly getting some new coaching in that they never had before, never worked on that, never worked on speed, or something, or strength, or stamina. So major expansion, business growth and optimization does that. So when that is done, and you are what I call the top of your league, so that according to the industry you're in, and the type of business you are, your location, your size, etc. If you are, optimized there, then you may want to think about, one, you want to keep that going, but two, that's now a time you can think about a major expansion. So in other words, if you have a coffee shop, so on a particular high street, and when you compare it to other coffee shops of the same size, wherever they are, the same area, all those things, and you see that, wow, you are actually the top. You get 98% return customers. You have 98% of seats full. In the coffee shop all the time. You've got and that type of thing, and people are spending, whereas most people are buying one coffee in most shops. In your shop, they're buying two coffees and a meal, and they're actually staying shorter. They're not staying as long on the chairs, so it's a quicker turnover. All these things. So if you're sort of top of your league there. So you obviously need to know what's going on in your industry, and what's going on in your location, in your city, or wherever you are. Once you're at the top of the league there, we've sort of cracked it there. Of course, things change. So to stay on top of your game, you may need to change things. The demographic changes. New things come in. Young people who are going to college, 2 years ago, different from the young kids going to college now, and so on. So you have to think about those things and staying on top and constantly refreshing yourself anyway to stay on top. So major expansion is a different thing. It's when you really want to do something new with the business. You want to either duplicate it, perhaps you want to offer franchises, perhaps you want to bring in completely new products, a product range, which will complement what you're doing, but sort of perhaps double the revenue. Change of model, or you want to tweak the model significantly. All these things can be sort of major expansion, and first of all, you have to think long and hard about if you want that. If you want what is the headache, if you want what you might see as the significant, more significant responsibilities, but also maybe more significant profits, etc., etc. So you have to be clear, because I'm not saying that I'm not advocating that the goal is to grow. The goal is to be profitable, and to be able to be profitable and to live off your enterprise. And on top of that, obviously, it's to create. I'm not going to say create employment. I'm talking about sharing wealth. So it could be that you employ people. It could be that you have the fact that you support other business because you buy your supplies from other people. Other businesses are supported by you. So it's a matter of sharing your wealth in that sense, and how you share it, and how the business shares it is up to you. So major expansion, you have to think long and hard about it, and it's going to be a whole new. For example, you hear some of the big organizations. Oh, this big supermarket, I know, Tesco or Sainsbury's or Asda, whatever these big organizations are. You sometimes hear them say, "Oh, they didn't grow this year. They made 100 million, but somehow it should be that they made, so therefore they're expected to have made at least 101 million this year. I'm not sure why. Why is it that you have to grow, right? So I'm not advocating that you have to. That the goal is major expansion. It's not what I'm saying. So when you have optimized your business, that's now an option. You have two options actually. Many options. One is major expansion, and then the other one is divestment. Divestment means, and this is okay to be a goal with people to get rid of their business. It could be because they want to retire, or it could be that they want to cash in, and maybe they want to do something else. So part of optimizing your business is that you are, because remember, when you're selling your business, you're selling, you're sort of selling future profits, as it were. You're selling a track record, the goodwill, and future profits. So you have to show people, one, that you are making a profit, and then two, you have to point out to them, ways of expanding the business in a sense. So that's what people are buying. So that's pretty understandable, right? People are buying, and some people are buying you because you're the competition, right? But that's okay. It's an okay strategy. If Google want to buy you or Facebook want to buy you for 20 zillion, that's, and you built this great software or something like that, you know what? That's a good strategy, and some people will go back and build another one. And some people built it with that in mind. So that's divestment. So it's when you're ready. It's your personal circumstances that will make you, will dictate when you want to divest, and also financial opportunities, to cash in, and maybe your personal circumstances, you want to do something else. So that's fine. So that's divestment. So with a major expansion, you may franchise, you may duplicate, and one of the things you have to remember that, I'll give you an example. There's a big in the UK. There's a big sort of national chain of fish and chip shops. Fish and chips big in the UK, and one of these big organisations thought, I wonder if we could, make a national chain out of fish and chip shops. And they looked around and they found one up in Yorkshire. It had the name of the original founder. It was like a name of the person, John Brown. I can't remember the name actually right now. And they'd bought them. He wasn't around anymore, but they'd bought the company, and I think they brought in his grandson or something to be the face of it, because he he had that kind of face, looked like he could be the original man, and and they did. They sort of expanded sorted out the menu, changed the menu, standardized it, and started opening up shops all around the UK. And I was speaking to the head of the organisation, or major player in the organisation that bought it. I think he spearheaded it, and he was giving the story. And I said to him, could you have done this expansion with the original owner in place? And he said no. And I said, why not? And I sort of guessed, and he said, well, the original owner would have been too caught up in keeping standards, the original dream and the standards that they wanted to, aspire to, and they wanted to instill, because that's why they only had two shops, and therefore you couldn't do that when you're trying to expand in this way by duplicating and so on, and franchising. You couldn't do it in this way. You needed to standardize the menu, so you have to make it so that pretty much like like these, the places where people eat is just standardized. People don't need to have cooking experience. I remember being shocked when a schoolmate of mine in from Jamaica, he'd gone to the States, and he came back and said he's been doing some part-time work or something in KFC or something like that. And I said, but you can't cook. How did that happen? And he said it's not like that in America, because in Jamaica everybody was, if you worked in any kind of food outlet, you had some training and probably some qualification in food, right, in catering. So it was really quite a shock to me. So yeah, so he said that can't be done. So think about it. If you're going to try and expand your own business, chances are that it's going to be very hard to keep standards. So is that something you can live with? you know, and also you have to build in, keeping certain standards. And yes, it's going to be you have to think about staffing and so on, and who's going to share the responsibility with you. How do your responsibilities change from a one-off location to 10 or 100? All these things you have to think about. The workload, how many extra people do you need to share that workload for this bigger organization, this bigger thing, and how many, what skills do they need, and so on. So it's a big thing, is the major expansion. So I'm just sharing that with you so that when you understand. So if you look at our major expansion module, and to be honest, we guide you through a lot of stuff in the major expansion module, but you're always going to need some hands-on help. So that you're always going to need some hands-on coaching with that as well. So it's never standalone, because it's a major undertaking. And of course, at that point, you can afford it too. So, yeah, so anything. So, again, look at all the courses. Business Tutors Online is where you find all the courses. www.businesstutorsonline.com. Good timing. Phone's ringing. Should have been turned off. And if you want to join the Tijara Business Network, where you can post some of these questions that we'll answer, and to myself and other coaches, and also share information and questions with your peers, other people, other clients and other people on that business growth and startup journey, then go to olympicsprintbusiness.com and join the business network. It's £6 a month. And it's I'm sure you'll get a lot from it.